All right. Good evening, everybody. Justin Gibbs here with the team at the National Weather Service office in Paducah. We're going to look at our severe weather and flash flood threat over the course of the next 24 to 36 hours or so. If earlier, I'm sorry, that was my main thing. Last time we did this, we had a pretty bad buzz. I think I've fixed that. Got the mouse far enough away from the computer, but if we do have audio issues, just leave a comment, let me know. Otherwise, we'll get going here. We'll give everybody just a few seconds to join up, and then we'll go over things. We'll talk a little bit about sort of the nuts and bolts of what's going on, what we expect, and then the different scenarios that may play out. So everybody wants to know about the overall risk for severe weather, and we got a 3 out of 5. Where we've had a 2 out of 5, the other day. It's a 3 out of 5. Mainly, the main thing we're concerned about isn't necessarily any one thing in the ingredients. It's that we're going to start having a little more wind than what we've had in the past, as far as the deep layer shear and all the different things. We get a big, large-scale storm system coming through, and we don't normally get those in August. So we're going to have enough heat and humidity and shear that we're more concerned about some tornadoes than we would typically be in August. Now, the general thoughts that we've had as we look through things today is that the highest risk has shifted maybe a little further south, to where at the end of the day, northeast Arkansas and northwest Tennessee may get the bulk of this. But we also know enough about the models that we're using to know that we cannot lock in on that and say that's what it's going to be, because we could get the new model runs tonight, shift back to the north. We've sat here and tried in the past with these events. We've had a pretty set boundary that we could key in on ahead of time and say right there is what the threat's going to move, and then however the storm system moves it is how this thing's going to evolve. There's really, we're looking at a map we just analyzed, there's not as much of a boom boundary to connect to, so there's a lot more uncertainty in the placement and the timing with the thunderstorms going on today. But so the big picture, we're concerned about wind damage from thunderstorms. Potentially, we're concerned about tornadoes more than we have been in the last couple of months, and we're concerned about flash flooding primarily because the ground is so wet that it isn't going to take very much rain to create thunderstorms or create flash flooding. Right now, we're expecting 2 rounds of storms, one from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. and then another from 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. There's going to be some severe potential with both of those. We're thinking that the first round may arrive. If it arrives as early as noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, that's going to be before the peak. The sun has had time to do all of its work, and the instability may be a little more limited, and the shear doesn't really arrive until later. So what may come to pass is that we get this initial round of storms before the instability is all set up, clears us out a little bit, and then when the shear arrives late in the evening, we don't have as much instability to work with, and we end up without as much of a severe weather threat. What could also happen is that it doesn't clear us out, and we end up with the shear and the instability, and we end up with tornadoes, and the risk becomes a little more of an issue that plays out. And then with 2 rounds of storms, we're concerned about flash flooding as it develops through the overnight. So the main advice for tomorrow is to have multiple ways to receive warnings. Be aware through the day. This doesn't mean stop everything you're doing. It's going to be horrible. It means just be ready to pay attention. We'll put the warnings and watches out as it comes out. And we have had some questions. The Evansville radar is still down, just like it was with the last event. So what that does, it makes the job harder for us, but it does not make it impossible. We can still see the Louisville radar is about 60 miles from Evansville. Fort Campbell radar is about 60 miles. The Paducah radar is about 60 miles. The Indianapolis radar is about 85 or 90 miles. And then we got St. Louis. We can make it work. There are parts of southeastern Missouri that are 100 miles from the Paducah radar, even when everything is working, and we still manage to to get out ahead of it. And we're not really expecting as much of a severe weather risk like in the Mount Vernon, Evansville, Owensboro area. So don't be afraid that you're not going to get warnings because the radar's down. We were trained to deal with that. We know how to interrogate storms. Well, the only thing that might happen is we'll be a little more aggressive, where when the radar's up, we can see down low, and we don't issue tornado warnings because we can see that it's not spinning the ground. Where if we're only seeing the mid-levels, we see it spinning there, we say, okay, we're going to warn because we don't know for sure. That'll be about the only difference that you'll notice at the end of the day. And it's a little harder on us, and we don't like it because we like having the radar and being able to see everything, because that's just how we are. Nothing to worry about too much, though. Severe wind outlook, again, it's kind of the highlighted orange area. You got a 30 to 44% chance of, if you want to get technical, of severe wind within 25 miles of the point. Basically, this is the area. And then the tornado risk is 5% chance, which is still higher than normal, for any given day. So it just basically says, let's keep an eye on it. I do agree that the threat is probably highest in southeast Missouri for the tornado side, and by the time it gets into western Kentucky, the instability may be becoming a little more limited. The timing, again, 1 to 6 p.m. in the west, 3 to 8 p.m. in the east, and then the second round, 8 p.m. to 1 a.m., 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. That is going to be the sort of the timing as best we can ascertain. And then the main thing that has got us kind of on pins and needles here is the flooding risk. We have a slight risk of excessive rainfall, could become moderate risk. For the overall models are kind of spitting out about 2 to 3 inches of rain southeast Missouri, western Kentucky. We don't need that right now. And what we're also concerned about is 4 to 5 inches of rain. But as you can see in this model too, this output in our official forecast, we have the highest rain south into the boot heel of southeast Missouri, northeast Arkansas, northwest Tennessee, where they haven't had as much rain. We're kind of hoping we'll get a little bit lucky and they won't get enough rain to flood them, and then the flooded areas that have been hammered so hard will luck out. And again, enhanced risk just means numerous severe storms are possible. Some longer-lived severe storms are possible. A few intense storms are possible. And turnaround, don't drown. I have another thing I want to show you, talking about the soil. Talked about how saturated that we are. I meant to have this pulled up, but I forgot. So this is, you don't need a fancy tool to tell you that it's wet, but we have one, so we're going to use it. Here's where the wettest soil moisture is detected from Ballinger County into Scott County, Stoddard County, western Mississippi County, northeastern Nevada County, and then in western Kentucky from the Purchase region, and then in northwest Tennessee around Union City, Weakley County, Obion County. All of that where we've had so many events where that boundary has set up kind of southwest to northeast, and so we get rain on that area, we're going to be pretty worried pretty quick. If we can keep it down here, we got a little more capacity to hold it. So if we start to see that we're going to get rain over that area, we'll pop a flash flood watch out to kind of prepare. We may still do that this evening depending on the new models that come in, or in the morning. We just don't quite have enough confidence on where everything's going to set up to pull the trigger on a watch at this point. And then let me close that. We'll look at the models a little more explicitly, talking about timing. So here's right now, everything's cool. And then in the morning, little system starts to develop. This is about 7 o'clock in the morning, and this is just one model. And then it blows things through. This is about lunchtime. And you can see the worst of it is down here in Arkansas, Tennessee, and we're kind of spared. And then another round gets going, but it's further south than it was 24 hours ago. There's no doubt about it. And then this model here, it's a different model, brings things in. Thunderstorms in the afternoon. Still the worst of it south, and then in the afternoon, in the evening, it brings a little more robust action through the evening when the shear arrives. And then this model has slower, it brings things through at like 4 in the afternoon, and then it's a pretty robust line of severe thunderstorms through the afternoon, like 5, 6 p.m., and then it's just one round and then some training action behind it. That's possible. It's one scenario that I think is at least plausible, and then there's another model that shows that too. We really think this model is probably going to end up closer to right. But if we hold off to 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we will be more unstable. We'll be more concerned about weather, or we're more concerned about severe weather and higher end damaging wind potential. And then the total of all the models' precipitation averages, again, draws that bullseye to the south over northeastern Arkansas and the boot heel of Missouri, where there's a little more capacity, but it's awful close, isn't it? It's close to that area that has seen so much rain, that has been flooded so many times, and it's close enough that we're very concerned. So we're going to continue to monitor it, and if you're in those areas, be prepared to monitor the weather through the day. This is where we're at. We're at a monitor the weather stage. We're not at cancel plans and sit in the basement all day kind of scenario here. Let's monitor, and then if warnings come out, we start issuing tornado warnings, or we get watches out. Take the necessary action to protect yourself. If flash flood warnings go out, don't drive into areas where water covers the roadway, because the roadway may be washed out. There's all kinds of different things that can happen. It can get very, very sketchy, very dangerous very quickly. And it can be hard to see that water when it crosses the roadway if you're not careful. Even if you are careful. I've driven in water before in an area where I had already issued a warning and told people, turn around, don't drown, and I drove right into it because I couldn't see it. So don't do that. Don't be like me. Let's see. Other than that, I don't know if anybody has any specific questions. We've had a few questions on the Facebook page throughout the day. We tried to answer, with specifics about what about my particular location, stuff like that. We'll answer them as best as we can. We obviously don't know exactly. But statistically, the probability is higher at Poplar Bluff than it is at Paducah, and then higher, a little bit less in Evansville and Mount Vernon and Owensboro. And then it's about the same in Paducah as it is Hopkinsville, probably, I'd say. And then, like I said, your pick town for severe weather tomorrow, if you're going to pick one, it's probably going to be like Poplar Bluff. It would have the best chance of seeing some severe weather in our area. Cape Girardeau, maybe, that far north. And we'll know in the morning when first light comes up and we see where all the boundaries and everything is set up for the day, where the moisture's all spread out. We'll be able to say, okay, yeah, here's the problem. Or we'll say, hey, I think we'll be all right. And that's just the way that these things go. We can only measure and detect so much. Chance of an upgrade from SPC, probably. I would, SPC is going to do whatever they think they need to do. But there's certainly not been any chatter that I've heard about going to like a moderate. I mean, there could be a major change and a major shift, and everything lines up and we go that way. But that's not really what we're thinking tonight from what we're seeing. I would say there's a pretty good chance that we'll hold at enhanced, at least for the southern part of our area. But, don't let it affect your preparation too much. You prepare for an enhanced and a moderate roughly the same way as far as monitor the weather and be ready to react if we start issuing watches and warnings. Williamson County, Illinois, it depends on the line that comes through. If it's you get a severe line, you can get some 60, 70 mile an hour wind. I'd say the chances of that are certainly lower up there than they would be over western Kentucky and southeast Missouri. Yep. We'll hopefully see. One more question. Snuck past me. Maybe Marion, Kentucky. Some rain. Yeah. Have y'all had? I guess y'all haven't had as much the last few days. There's been so much rain. I can't keep up with who has gotten dumped on and not. That's why we have these fancy tools so we can see. See, Marion has had a little bit. Not as much. I don't know. Maybe you were just kidding. It looks pretty wet. Not the 12 or 15 inches like some other places have had, but it's been pretty wet. Pretty wet everywhere. Greenville, Muhlenberg County, about the same. You're not in the bullseye from what we can tell, but just be prepared to monitor throughout the afternoon and the evening, and then be ready for flooding, especially in Muhlenberg where you've got the hills there and stuff. It's a little more susceptible and you're not in the areas that have been crushed by the rains the last few days, but it's not been exactly dry there either. So, all right. I'm sitting around here for a couple more questions if anybody has them, but I appreciate everybody checking it out. Be safe tomorrow, and hopefully, for once this summer, perhaps we'll have an event not overachieve and go nuts. But we'll be ready if it does, and we'll respond to it, and we'll do the things that we do. So, Union County, Illinois, not in the bullseye, well north of the bullseye, but just keep an eye on it as we go through tomorrow. Same thing for Owensboro, not in the bullseye necessarily. Wayne County, Missouri, you've got a little bit higher probability. You need to pay a little better attention to things happen a little earlier in the day. And in Scottsville, by the time it gets to you, it may be a little weaker depending on exactly how it evolves. I wouldn't be surprised. Just keep an eye on it as we go through the day tomorrow. And that's what we'll do. Butler County, Missouri, could be as early as lunchtime or 10, 11 a.m. Could be a little later, 2, 3 p.m. onset. But I'm thinking for you all it's going to be a little earlier in the day. And then another round perhaps in the evening. But we just really don't. We think that we'll have a hard time producing 2 rounds of severe weather. Really doubt we're going to get a round of severe and then another round of severe. Probably one or the other will be severe or have the bulk of the severe weather. Probability of tornado in Murray, Kentucky tomorrow. 2% is actually the statistical probability of a tornado within 25 miles of Murray tomorrow. 2%, which is not very much, but it's a tornado, so pay attention. 25 miles is pretty close. So, Massachusetts County, Illinois, kind of looking about the same. Little decent probability, enough to be paying attention through the late morning and afternoon, but not necessarily in the bullseye as it stands right now. Yeah, that's the difference. 2% chance across part of our area and 5% chance in southeast Missouri. It's technically what it is. Livingston County, Kentucky, you have a chance. You just have to kind of continue to monitor. It's about the same as it would be in Paducah. Not in the bullseye, but close enough to kind of continue to watch. And maybe by tomorrow afternoon, we'll be able to tell you that we're done. You're not going to have any trouble. Weekly County, Tennessee, you've got a little better threat. Probably, realistically, I'd be a little more concerned in that area. Further south you go to Weekly and Gibson, down into West Tennessee, northeast Arkansas, rather, it looks a little bit better. And then Gracie, Kentucky, by the time it gets there, I think you're probably weakening a little bit. And yeah, we get that first rain. If we can get a bunch of thunderstorms in the, around lunchtime tomorrow, I think it will help us as far as our instability. Now, what it may do is produce a lot of rain that primes the pump for the second round of thunderstorms, and we end up with a flash flood scenario. But it's for severe weather, it'll help us. The more thunder we can get there later in the day. Marion, Illinois, there's the risk, but you're not really in the bullseye for tomorrow. So just kind of continue to monitor as we go through the day. And yeah, so that's what we know. We'll do graphics probably in the morning, about 4 o'clock. When we finish up between 4 and 5 in the morning, usually we'll finish up looking at the new forecast models that will be coming in about 3 hours, and we'll provide updates as we can. And then obviously through tomorrow we'll do watches and warnings and all the typical stuff that we do. Everybody have a very pleasant and quiet evening, and we will talk to you as updates occur.